Welcome back to another Habs Summer Target episode with the hockey coach Francis directly for a beautiful country at 10M. And the co-hosts are back in the house. I'm talking about Marko Larabi and Mr. Enortap. Marko, what we have today on this episode?
Well, Coach, I think it's an important part of Ken Hughes' strategy, this summer. As we've talked about, he has just absolutely spoiled Montreal Canadiens fans with the ability to pull off some pretty great trades over the last two drafts. As you know, the first draft that he was there, getting Kirby Dach, and then last season being able to go ahead and get Alex Newhook, right? So I think most people are expecting something similar. What we're hoping to do here is look around the NHL marketplace and try to maybe anticipate what kind of trades are there for Ken Hughes to look at either at the draft or later in the summer. Lots of options, right? But as we've said in our last episode, Coach, it's not easy finding these trade partners, right? Montreal has a lot of assets, a lot of defensemen, and a lot of picks to trade. Again, these are just some ideas that we have, Coach. Are some rumors that we've heard. Sometimes it just fits that we think might be a good idea. Very curious. We hope that you guys give us your comments. What do you think about who Montreal should be targeting? What do you think of the proposals that we're making? It's for fun, right? Just something to talk about as we kind of head up.
Yes, Marco, you're absolutely about this. And I just want to remind everybody, this is not like a trade rumor. It's only a mock trade proposal by us. Go start with you and go to give us what is your first mock trade proposal for the Montreal Canadiens.
One other thing, Coach, is if we do enough of these trade mock proposals, maybe one of them will be right. Let's get started, right? For me, one of the players that I've been hoping that Montreal would target for a while is in Edmonton, and I'm talking about Dylan Holloway. I really like this player. You're slowly starting to see him emerge towards the end of last season, and as we're in the playoffs here, he's playing on the third line. He's somebody that hasn't really gotten an opportunity in Edmonton. Just with all that talent, it's hard for him to kind of pierce that lineup, right? It kind of fits the same profile as Newhook and Dach, right? Like a good young player. It's actually the same draft year as Caulfield and Newhook as well. It really fits that definition and that same profile that Kent Hughes has went after before. Big body, tremendous skater, power forward. He's a left-hand shot. I think personally, Coach, if we look at next year's lineup, if we look at remember we have a hole in our top six, right? For me, he would be a great option to have in that top six. What do you have to give away for Dylan Holloway? Well, Edmonton, they're going to need some defensemen here, right? They're a little bit tight against the cap. If they're going to try to sign Warren Fogle, if they're going to try to re-sign him, things are going to start to get a little bit tight in Edmonton. So maybe Edmonton is looking for young defensemen, on his entry-level deal. For me, I'm looking at different defensemen that Montreal could potentially offer, secure a player like Dylan Holloway. You could try to include somebody like Barron, but I think you would have to add something, maybe Winnipeg's first pick, if you're going to go with Justin Barron. If you want to go a bit cleaner though, Coach, and make it a little bit more enticing, I'm going to duck right away here, but what if you were to offer Jack-Eye for Dylan Holloway? I think that would be pretty enticing, great player for Edmonton. That would be great for their mix of defensemen over there. I know I'm going to get clobbered for this one, but guys, to get quality, you have to give quality. And I really believe in Dylan Holloway. He's a character kid, power forward. I think he has the potential to score 25, 30 goals in the NHL. He fits perfectly in the timeline that Montreal has. Am I targeting the right player? And am I giving too much, not enough? What do you guys think?
Partnership between Edmonton and Montreal makes total sense to me, right? There's two teams that have gaps in different areas, and those two teams have strengths in those particular areas that the other team is seeking. So Dylan Holloway makes total sense if Montreal can wiggle him out of Edmonton. In terms of what they would be looking for, I would not give up a Jack. I'd be more open to one of our other defenders. When we talk about what intangibles certain players bring to the forefront, Jack-Eye is one of those guys. And we're seeing a guy that's growing right in front of us, and again, not just because of because he's a physical specimen, but because his defensive strategies are improving, his play is improving, he's being much more selective. I'd hate to see somebody like Jack-Eye go, to be honest with you guys. Pick any other defenseman that you have on Montreal, but don't go there. Well, what was your original trade? You had Jack-Eye?
So I said either Jack-Eye straight up for Holloway, or another option maybe is I don't think Harris does it. Maybe Justin Barron is somebody that has some offensive upside, but I think you'd have to add a lot, like maybe Winnipeg. But I don't think Edmonton is really in the market
Yeah.
for picks either, right? I think they're going to be looking for NHL bodies, guys, to be honest. I don't know if the Winnipeg, like a late first round pick, is that valuable to Edmonton with where they are. Again, maybe you're doing like a Barron and a Machar, or like, one of those kind of like, Fords that maybe aren't. But I don't think that gets it done. I don't think it gets it done.
Well, it has to be enticing. I agree that perhaps they're not after a draft pick, so that's why I'm hesitant of throwing the Winnipeg pick in there. Otherwise, I'd be willing. So you're looking at probably, you can give them a choice of either Struble or Harris to start off the deal. You can throw in Farrell. I think the Farrell is not going to be able to vert at the level that we want to. And even Massar would be a consideration. Within there, I think that there's something you can work with.
Great comments, both of you. I will finish this one for this mock proposal. If I was to go into trade Holloway, I would go more as only a 1-1. I think the Jet pick and you add someone behind this, it's not good enough for the Edmonton Oilers. I think if you give them a Mayu over Jekai, I think that would fit better. First for the Montreal Canadiens, and secondly for the Edmonton Oilers. Mayu is a right defenseman, and they are looking one behind Bouchard, and I think that would be complete their top 4 defensemen. Compared if you have Jekai, you have already a left defenseman, you have Donald Nurse, you have also Ekholm. So I feel like that would be better Mayu. So that would be only my difference between both of you about that. To go with Enortap now, which team are going to make a trade with the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, one of our mortal enemies, the Carolina Hurricane, for me. It's no secret that Hughes and the Habs, they're looking to add scoring to their ranks this summer. I mean, we just heard it recently in one of the interviews that Hughes gave out. I mean, obviously there's been good natural progression with the youth that we have on the team, but right now that's not enough. They want to obviously address the fact that there's a bit of a lack of scoring, and that's the gap that we have. And one guy that I think would fit the bill for Montreal would be Martin Necas. The Hurricane right now, if you look at their situation, they're a bit of a crossroads when it comes to their roster. They have a talented forward that they might have to sacrifice in this case just to create cap flexibility, and at the same time keep other key roster players in the fold as you go along, because they have, I believe it's 8 pending UFAs as well as 3 RFAs that they need to take care of, and they only have around $30 million to get all of that done. So for us, for Montreal, this would be fantastic. This guy's 6'2". He's almost 200 pounds. I think he's 195 thereabouts. He's only 25 years old, so he fits in perfectly with what we have. He's a very hard-working player. In 6 years that he's been with Carolina, he's accumulated over 240 points in 350 games or thereabouts. He can inject 3 key things in Montreal's lineup: size, skill, and speed. And I think those are 3 assets that Montreal really covets and fits their mold of what they've been trying to establish. As a possibility for the trade, I had us giving up Winnipeg's first round pick that we have in our possession, and I was willing to give up defense. It was Matheson. So Winnipeg's first and Matheson for Martin Necas.
Interesting. Like Enortap, it's hard to argue with you with respect to Necas being like a really good fit for Montreal's top picks. Like, he's a right-hand shot. You can definitely see him being a really great fit with Kirby Dach and with Newhook or whoever they end up having on that second line. No debate there. I think he'd be a tremendous fit. I don't agree with you necessarily, though, that this is the player that they're going to choose to move on from in their little cap crunch. You mentioned Teravainen. Like, Teravainen, I believe, is 30. Right. So I don't suspect that they're going to extend him, because you're going to be putting a lot into Gensel, who's in that same bracket. I just don't see them walking away from a player like Necas, to be honest. But if it is possible, if it is doable, I think you're right. Like, they're losing a lot of defensemen, or potentially losing a lot of defensemen. So they are an ideal partner if they don't end up, re-signing those guys. I think Matheson might be, kind of interesting for them. I just don't think that's somebody that Montreal really wants to move on from right now either, because of what he brings to the team. You really only have David Savard and Mike Matheson as more veteran guys. Coach, and Enortap, I think for someone like of the stature of Necas, there's already been reports that Montreal is not looking to move away from Reinbacher. I think you're probably looking at Logan Mailloux to get something like this done, and maybe another piece, right? Like, maybe like a Harris, maybe a Logan Mayu and a Harris get it done, and a pick or something. But confidence level on this one happening, I just don't see Carolina moving on from this guy. But if it's the case, then Kent Hughes should be all over it, because I think he would be a great fit for what they want to do.
Yeah, and part of the logic with Matheson was also, I mean, it'll be difficult for him to duplicate the kind of year he's had this year. And you're right, he's valuable to Montreal, but as you said in one of our other episodes, Marco, you have to give something up to get something, and that would be a key piece that we'd have to sacrifice. And maybe we can address his absence with a cheaper UFA that we can pick up on defense. Yeah,
I don't think you want to roll into the next year with 5 defensemen under, that have like 100 under 200 games experience in the NHL, right? Like, I think the best way to put it, Coach, is we're trying to look for situations that might fit what Montreal wants to do, right? So they're educated guesses looking on the situations that teams are in, and we're looking for fits. And you might hear there's other, podcasts and stuff like that talk about this too, right? So it's not completely crazy. We're not just pulling players out of nowhere, but, it's educated guesses based on kind of different situations that teams, and whether they might be a good trade partner with Montreal.
Thank both of you to be with me today for another Habs Summer Target. Until the next time, remember, you have greatness inside of you, and we wish you an amazing, great, blessed day, everybody.